Good Saturday morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the weekend wrap up here on Shelbyville Now. I'm David Thomas, Mr. Josh Blevins sitting next to my side. Josh, another busy week in Shelbyville,
Another
Bedford
busy
County.
week. They just come one right after the other.
I know it's packed full of stuff.
Packed full. We're gonna have to move quick this week.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to sit around for an hour on a Saturday.
No,
so
they
we're
don't.
Gonna have to be concise.
Yes, for sure. And we want to thank our sponsor this morning, Dennis Young Insurance here in Shelbyville. We're going to dive in, but let's hear a word from him first.
Absolutely.
All right.
With the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
Welcome back, everybody. Before we dive in, Josh, I want to talk about the motor club, the Shelbyville City.
Yeah, there's a crowd over there at the
Club.
celebration when I drove by this
The
morning.
auto club's having an auto show over there, and there's all types of antiques and classic cars, and a lot of people stirring around. It's running from 8 this morning, which has already started, and it goes to 4 p.m. this afternoon. So it looks like a good time.
Yeah, so maybe after they're done watching us, people could go over there and look at the cars.
Right.
So, absolutely.
Well, Josh, I know we've got a lot to unpack today. Let's start out with the city. What else happened this week with in the city of Shelbyville, city government?
Just real quick before we dove right in, I wanted to issue a clarification on something I said last week.
Okay.
I mentioned that somewhere in just tongue in cheek, I said that we were beating up on the county and we were going to beat up on the city.
Yeah.
And you corrected me and said we're not picking on employees. And I want to just give a little more clarification around there. The reason that we're covering all these issues isn't to pick on, beat up on anybody. We're just here to shed some light on information that you may not be getting in other media in the city. So we're going to call out, spoiler alert, some big names today, and we're going to call them out for some things they may have said in public. And it's not because we personally have anything against any of these people.
Right.
It's that we want to make sure that everybody in town here stays informed and, there's a lot of taxpayer money involved in a lot of these issues, and we just want, some of this information to get out there that they may not be able to get from other sources.
For sure. As far as I know, nobody's really talking about this type of stuff, Josh. And
right.
If we don't, who's going to do it? You have to dig and hunt. It just makes it easier to have it compiled here.
Yeah, that's why we started doing this, is to try to get, we felt like there wasn't enough of some of this information getting out there, and we wanted to present some of it.
Well, right now, none of it is.
None of it. None of it that we could see. So on to city news of the week. Thursday afternoon into the evening for 3 hours, we sat at city council meeting. Started at 4:30, and it started so early because they were doing interviews for the power board.
Right.
There were 2 seats up for, I guess, election, re-election, whatever you want to call it. There were already people in both of those seats.
Right.
And actually both of those people just got re-put back into their seats. But as part of that process, they have to open it up to the public. 2 people came up and presented their qualifications, got interviewed, but they decided to stick with who was already on there.
Right.
But during those interviews, we found out just a couple little tidbits of stuff that's been going on in the utilities and areas. So we wanted to play you a little clip and then talk about one of these things.
All righty. Here we go.
Any other of the smaller systems around?
We were approached by the Warface system.
Okay.
And we did a feasibility study. And we chose not to take over that system because they had about a 55-60% water leak.
Yeah.
And we chose it'd be a losing situation.
Do you see a problem working with another utility system that's providing water in Bedford County? I know that we've got some
problem.
Yeah, and I haven't been involved in that, thank goodness. I don't know if any of the rest of them have or not, but do you see a situation where we might work that out sometime in the future? Shelbyville Power, your water system could probably provide water to that system at a lower rate, maybe?
We could, but we can sell Bedford utility system water cheaper than they make it
Okay,
right now.
that's what I've been told.
And what I'd like to see happen is anything that belongs to the city of Shelbyville, which is the airport and all that,
Yes, sir.
the industrial park out there, Shelbyville, city industrial park.
Right.
All that stuff all that water and all that stuff should come under the city and Shelbyville Power.
So that was a current Power Board member who got reelected, Irving. I should have gotten his full name.
Yeah,
But-
he's been around a while.
Yeah, he's been on the board. This, I believe, was his second or third go around. But they touched on two issues there that we hadn't heard a lot about, anyways. War Trace Water
Wow.
has had issues for years, as we've heard, and we've done different stories on that. Back around Christmas time, they were having, issues providing enough water to keep Bell Buckle in water because Bell Buckle was downstream of them.
Right.
So apparently, within the last couple of years, Shelbyville Power looked at taking them over and decided that they're in such bad shape that it's not even worth taking over the system. So
Those numbers.
55 to 60% water loss doesn't sound like a good thing.
No, it doesn't.
So-
There's bigger holes than there are spigots. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
a lot of holes in the line. So it doesn't speak well of
We're losing more over there than they're actually getting to the end
Then-
consumer.
at the time that they did the study, apparently.
Wow.
Again, I've heard that study was about 2 years ago, but still, that's
Well, hadn't a lot
concerning
been done
for-
since.
not enough because, again, the
Yeah.
December, January issues they had were pretty bad. And then there's a little bit of discussion there about BCUD, Bedford County Utility District. Apparently, it sounds like there's a little friction between the city power water system and the county power water system. The city is about to push sewer over to 231 to service the new MTSU flight school. They got $5 million from the state to pay for that.
Right.
But apparently the county is still providing water to some of that area on 231. It seems like the city would like to take that over. Maybe the county's not so in on that idea.
Yeah,
So,
and you mentioned the word there. Bedford County, Shelbyville Power. City of Shelbyville, Bedford County.
yeah.
Friction.
Friction.
That's the key word.
We've had a lot of friction there.
Friction has got to
Yeah.
go away, Josh. in my
It's
opinion.
not good at the utility level. It's not good at the government level. I mean, we're all, in theory, everybody should be trying to serve the same constituents.
Yeah,
So,
well, they are.
yeah,
Oh.
they are. And yeah, so the friction's not good. In addition to the power board, there was a vote on a purchasing procedure that the city was debating changing. The state now allows them to make purchasing decisions that don't have to come to city council for as much as $50,000, which the current limit they have is $15,000. So anything they buy would have to have already been in that department's budget, but this would allow city staff, I believe there was at least 3 people involved, city treasurer,
Right.
city manager, and a department head, to put their heads together and buy an item that was $50,000 or less. There was some pushback on that. I think particularly City Council member Marilyn Ewing wasn't comfortable with that big of a jump, giving up that level of control.
I don't think this really was. I don't think a lot of people knew that this was coming up in this, even though it
didn't
was in
seem
the
like
agenda.
it,
But it seemed
yeah.
like it was like what
Right. It was at the study session, but I guess not enough discussion happened
Right.
that they understood exactly all the ramifications there.
And you know what? Stopping, deferring this, and talking about it is a good thing.
Oh, sure. There was no rush.
Yeah.
The state didn't say you have to change the limit. They just said you could if you want to. And there's nothing wrong with keeping the limit where it's at $15,000. It adds red tape to purchases over $15,000. But again, you're spending taxpayer money, so maybe red tape's not a bad idea.
Red tape for us is bad. Red tape for them
For
is not
government,
bad.
maybe not so bad.
I call it checks and balances.
Checks and balances are good. So the biggest item of the evening, and the reason the room was packed, it was the most people I've ever
Right.
seen inside a city council meeting in this new room that they've moved to.
Right.
They actually brought in an extra row of chairs and I'm always on the front row. I was the second row. They put a row in front of me
Right.
after we were already there, and they added chairs on the side. And the reason everybody was there was a vote on rezoning a piece of property on Jennings Lane, which we've covered extensively over the
Yeah.
past few weeks. And the developer gave another presentation. We've shown clips. We're not going to get into that. The bottom line is city council listened to the neighbors, they listened to the concerns, and they voted with the neighbors, not the developer, and 5-1 They
Yeah.
did not allow the developer to increase the density on Jennings Lane to R2 from R1.
There's one question left in my head after this. 5-1. It's R1.
Yeah.
Are we gonna see the chainsaws come out actually, and all those trees cut down, and are they gonna knock the barn down? Because
That was the
that
threat.
was a threat.
That was
Okay,
the threat.
but does this diminish the quality of their product when they do that?
I think it does. And I mean, the original threat was the developer was going to back out of the deal. So we had two competing threats. Does the developer back out? Do they clear cut the property? So we'll see now that the
I'm saying
council's
they're
made a
not.
stand.
I'm saying
I
the
don't
trees
think
will
so either.
stand because
Yeah.
those trees and the green space there make it a better product and more marketable.
Oh, sure, for the houses. And actually, even though it's a subdivision and not a PUD, we still have subdivision regulations.
Right.
There's a certain amount of detention ponds,
Right.
green space area that has to be in the plan. So I would say, I've even heard, they kept throwing out the 125 home number that they could squeeze
Right.
in there if they cut it all
Squeeze,
out. I've heard they're not going to fit that many in there. There's no way with all the other regulations for our stormwater
Sure.
drainage, street width, all that. They're not going to be able to get
Well,
that many homes.
one thing about this, the public were represented.
They were.
The public, 5 council members represented the voice of the people.
They did. And that's the key out of the whole thing. And I guess a special shout out to Susan Sutton. That was one of the neighbors. She went around to the entire neighborhood. She got petitions signed. She talked to the neighbors. She stirred up, concern to where they would actually show up at this meeting and speak. And that's how you can beat these developers.
Right.
Yes.
Well, it's how you get representation too,
Sure.
Josh,
Yeah.
because 9 times out of 10, something like this happens and nobody knows about it.
Right.
But somebody took the initiative to check things out. And Josh, you had a big hand in this because you brought awareness. Susan brought awareness to
Right.
this and got people to participate in going to their representatives. And that stuff, that's the key thing about our issues, I think, in this area. And most small towns maybe have it, and rural communities. You have governments that don't they don't interact with their constituents.
Right.
Well, this forces that interaction.
Yes. And it was, everything worked out like you would hope in representative government.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
The people spoke up, the people that represent them listened, and they got the results
Yeah.
they were looking for.
Textbook.
So next up, they voted on an ordinance outlawing camping or storing personal property on city and public property. This is a response to actually probably the drone video that Shelbyville Now had out a few months ago,
Yeah.
where it became obvious that we had a problem with a trash issue and campgrounds on the side of the river that were put there by the homeless population in town.
This one thing that I reflect back on this and look at it. We got an ordinance outlawing camping and storage. We already have a law, and it's called trespassing.
Right.
And I just wonder if this softens that word up a little bit and it makes it more aesthetically pleasing to hear rather than trespassing. It's just no camping or storage.
Nah, I mean, the police chief was there. He spoke on it a little bit.
Yeah.
They can enforce trespassing still. Trespassing is more serious. They would actually take them to the
Okay,
jail.
so this
and lock them
waters
up.
it down a little bit.
This is more of a fine, a way to push them off the property without having to lock them up.
Right. Okay.
Put them in prison, because nobody's goal is to lock up the
No,
homeless.
no.
We're just, there need to be better solutions, which we don't have, and that's a more serious, bigger issue. But in the meantime, the other issue was the river was just it was getting out of hand. You saw it from the video. There was too much trash and debris and stuff down there.
Sure.
That was going to get washed down in the river. It's going to cause environmental issues.
Oh, there's lots of issues with that. When I first saw that video, I'm going, wow, this is unbelievable that this is happening here in Shelbyville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
But it is.
So the city's taking action. Now, this has to be voted on one more time next month, I believe. This was the first reading.
First reading.
So second and final reading will be in June. If you feel strongly about the issue, second readings, they have a special public hearing just for second reading issues.
Right.
So you'd be able to stand up and speak on the issue next month at the meeting. So definitely, if it's something that, if you work in the homeless community and feel strongly about it one way or the other, come out to the June.
Yeah,
council
we'll
meeting.
keep everybody posted on that going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So Next up on the rundown, we had a vote 5-1 to send a letter to the Chamber of Commerce asking why the city got kicked off the Chamber of Commerce, even though their name is still on the Chamber of Commerce.
5-1.
5-1, yeah. Mr. Feldhouse, he's I guess friends with the chamber. He's stuck with the chamber. So,
Yeah, I get it. But I think the people need to hear this, so I'm glad 5 people voted for it.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a little more clarity on it, other than the memo that was sent by Mr. Hooper to the city with their checks and just saying, hey, we don't want you.
You know what's going to be interesting if the board even knew about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the city's question. Did the actual Chamber of Commerce board, which is a separate entity from the partnership, even though they're combined now, they're still 2 separate corporations as far as I know, 2 separate boards. Did the board of the chamber know what the board of the partnership did?
Exactly.
Or did the partnership kind of go Lone Ranger, do it on their own?
So
yeah, so we'll see how that turns out. I honestly, I don't know if they'll even get a response to the letter, but they're trying.
Yeah.
So they're trying.
The effort's there.
They're trying. So, and last thing, just a minor thing that came up right at the end. They did one of these letters of moral character. I think they have to do for a opening of a new liquor store. We're getting a liquor store at another liquor store because we have several at 730 Union Street. That would be the old Hops Fuel Express building, which was really run down. And James Farrow went and spent a bunch of money to fix that up. They've concreted it. I mean, it's a nice looking corner now. So it's got a drive-through window. So apparently, David, next time you're needing your whiskey, you can go through the drive-through.
Is that where you get it?
I guess so, at the drive-through liquor store.
Well, I think I've got other choices as well. There's probably 12.
There's probably several you can choose from. I'm just saying this one has a nice drive-through window.
Well, I'm sure this is a big need in Shelbyville.
Hey, it's as we often say on this, the government did not bring you this liquor store. This is a private individual that decided we needed another liquor store in this location.
Yes, this was not a vote to put a liquor store.
This was not a vote. Do we need a liquor store or a McDonald's or a Mexican restaurant here? This was a private individuals opening a private liquor store on private property. All the city had to do with it is they had to do a background check to make sure that they were worthy of running a liquor store, and they passed the background check.
It's called entrepreneurship.
It is called entrepreneurship. So. And that was kind of it at that particular city meeting. We had a couple other events that happened through the city. I went to the art crawl yesterday.
Yeah,
that was nice.
Nice pictures, Josh.
Well, thanks. It was. I mean, a ton of artists, a lot of stuff for sale. I hope they do that again. It looked like a big turnout, but I bet they would have a bigger turnout if they, would do it every so often.
Right.
Made it more of a regular.
Yeah. It looked like there was a lot of people roaming around the square.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty packed for. because normally. Friday night is not, other than the fourth Friday event that they have every month. A lot of times it would be more days.
I think that's the intent. The beautification of a square is conducive for this type of event,
right?
And it makes people come up and gather. It's shaping up good.
Yeah. We actually even part of it was in the new Glass Hollow space that eventually is going to be the restaurant there in the corner.
Right.
They opened up just what's going to be the retail space there and had like 3 artists in there. So it was all really nice. So, we'll move on to the county at this point. We've covered enough of the city, I think. And there were no county meetings. We have kind of a fluke of the calendar. The county commission meeting this month is on the 14th, I believe, which is the latest it can be. It's always the second Tuesday of the month. And just the way the calendar fell. So we've had 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks without a county meeting. Just the way the calendar fell. But we've got a big vote coming up next week, and you and I have been talking about it a lot for the last 2 weeks.
What's a big deal?
It's a big deal. So even the county thought it was a big deal. So on Thursday afternoon, they gathered a panel of experts on the radio at 1:00 to discuss some of the different issues coming up for a vote.
Yes, they did.
And of course, we tuned in because we were curious. I'm like, well, we're going to hear from county experts.
I know it.
I was excited. Yeah. We actually sent a copy of our original first video that we did 2 weeks ago to all 18 members of the county commission and our county mayor. So they knew where we stood on the issue. And I even typed up a nice email and sent it to our mayor and one of our commissioners that asked for it, kind of laying out the issues where we had some concerns. So we thought they've got a week and a half. They've got to have some answers. So, which is really what we're looking for.
And it's this is the public asking these questions.
We've got questions.
So many people reach out and want to know.
Yeah. So we were excited to get some answers. And I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, I didn't feel like I got a lot of answers. So, but we're going to run through a few things that they said and
Right.
just, talk about them and, kind of give our side of it and still what questions we
right.
still have.
Well,
on
Josh,
this.
let's do a brief summary of what's actually in place.
Sure.
We
Yeah.
have a capital expense project that will be voting. The commission will be voting to borrow money from our debt services fund.
$10.4 million.
Yeah, $10.4 million.
Yep.
Basically, what happens is that fund is used as leverage to make a loan because you can't write checks right out of debt service. It has to be to pay off a loan.
Has to
So
be to pay
they
off.
have to borrow the money, and they're going to do it and pay it back over a 3-year period.
Right.
And it's $10.4 million. And in the process of this, they have attached the Liberty School project, which has been approved. Okay.
Yeah, which we both support.
Right. I think everybody in the county is ready for this to take place, especially those folks in the area and those that are affected. We want that taken care of.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that taken care of, but they use that. They bundle it with other projects
For the projects.
that have no bids, not a lot of discussion recently
Right.
as far as numbers go, and it's all attached together.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a omnibus bill they do in Washington, D.C.
Bedford County version.
It's the Bedford County omnibus, we'll call it. And here's 5 items. You can vote them all up or down, but you can't split them out. You could discuss them separately, but you can't vote on them separately. You're either going to vote all or none.
Right. So it's basically is using the school system and the Liberty Project as a hostage. That's the way I look at it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
if you vote no, you're
right.
They're going to point at you and say, "Hey, look at that guy that voted no on the schools."
Okay. So the biggest expenditure out of this is going to be the juvenile detention center.
That
That's
is actually the
price
biggest
tag.
dollar price tag. Yeah, that's on there at $6,049,830.
And this number has been moving around all over the place for the last few years. It's been talked about.
Yeah, we've heard 5 million. We heard we were cutting the square footage. It was going to get under 5. At one point, maybe it was 4. Several years ago, it was even 2 or 3 million. And some of that's inflation, but some of that we have questions on.
Josh, my biggest concern on this whole thing is not necessarily whether we have a juvenile detention center or not, because we already have one. The question is, do we want to keep housing and incarcerating kids from other counties as a business? Because the business doesn't pay off. But the biggest issue is the discussion and having the actual facts out there to discuss.
Right. Yeah. We don't feel like we've gotten solid numbers on what it would cost to send our kids out of county, which is what a lot of counties do. Even in Davidson County this week, we saw they voted, I believe, $24 million contract to an outside company to oversee their facility. They have a facility, but even they don't want to be in the business.
They don't want to be in the business.
Housing juveniles. Nobody does. But somehow we're there. But the decision at this point, I think, could be, do we want to stay there?
Right.
But we've taken the decision to, we're there, we're going to stay there, which is, I don't know that that's necessarily the right decision.
One of the arguments has been on this, Josh, that we would have to drive our kids to Memphis if we didn't have one.
I heard that a lot.
Cookville was mentioned, which is closer than Memphis. But, we got one right within the shadow of our own judicial center.
Think less than 30 miles, maybe about 25 miles.
25 miles away.
Yeah.
And that's available. Everybody keeps ignoring that. And they keep explaining it away.
Yeah. So we heard from the experts on the radio. Let's play a clip of them discussing the juvenile center and let's hear what they had to say.
Just take them to Rutherford County. Well, Rutherford County's not taking any other kids.
They have enough of their own kids to deal with.
Right, and they're dealing with a $14 million lawsuit. Is that right? As a result of how they've been treating their kids at one point.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's one. Everybody talks about numbers. Well, I finally came up with some numbers because I mistakenly made a statement that's been quoted in a meeting where I said, the numbers are what the numbers are.
Right.
Well, now that I have the numbers, I'm glad they are what they are.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. I don't know. I think they've been mischaracterized.
Sure.
Just to put
it happens, yeah.
To put it nicely, I guess.
Okay.
But at any event, just in the last 10 months, we have turned away 373.
Time out. I thought you were going to say like 70 or 80. Say that again, Judge.
373.
We've turned down.
We've turned down 21 this month, and this is the 9th of May. And we're talking about places like, Cookville, Shelby County. Those are going to end up being our options if we don't have a facility.
Shelby County?
Yeah. And
Wow. Just wow.
That was a short clip, David, but there is a lot to unpack there, and we're going to work through it from the beginning to the end in chronological order. So the first thing you heard there from our, I believe he's our juvenile judge, Judge Rich,
Yes.
also our main criminal judge here, was a quote that said, Rutherford County is not taking any other kids.
Right.
When I heard that live on the radio, David, I just about spit my coffee out because we've been digging into this for months.
Yeah.
I've watched the Rutherford County Juvenile Board meetings for the last 2 months. There's another one Monday in Rutherford County that anyone's welcome to go to, open meeting.
And they got a phone over there too. You can call and find out some stuff.
They have phones, they have all that. And that's what I did because I thought maybe, I mean, these are the experts on the radio.
Right,
maybe they
right.
know something that I've missed. So far, I
Right.
have just done internet research. I said, maybe there's something behind the scenes that we're not seeing that they know that wasn't in that clip that they can
Right.
lay out. So I did a crazy thing, David. I picked up the phone.
Wow.
And I called the Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center, and I talked to Mr. Captain Leon Caesar, who is the second, I guess you call him second in command.
Right.
He's right under the director. The director wasn't available to speak on the phone. And he was really amenable. He was happy to talk to me. I told him, it was on the record. I told him we were with media. And he told me unequivocally, we do accept out-of-county juveniles.
Right.
He said that 3 times during the conversation. I said, is there maybe some kind of friction between Bedford and Rutherford County, something we're not seeing behind the scenes? Is there a reason you might treat Bedford County different than other counties? He said, absolutely not. He said, their current rate is $175 a night. They have contracts with multiple other counties.
Right.
And the rate is going up to $200 a night starting in July. So they're about to have a rate increase.
Right. Well, I heard it amount 200.
Yeah, 200 was already on some of the contracts that we found. We also were provided this piece of paperwork here, which is their current yearly activity report for the Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center.
They're not turning people away because they're full.
I asked that question.
Yeah.
Do you have staffing issues? There were no staffing issues. They've not been turned away due. Their population average in the current fiscal year, between which the last month they had data for was March. It's run their minimum population average in January, February. They had 9. They had as high as 15 in October.
Wow. They were booming in October.
But they have a 64-bed facility.
Exactly. So they're running about 20%.
Yeah. So, and they also, on the report that I was provided, in county, which would be Rutherford County juveniles, in the most recent month, they had 8 juveniles from in the county and 17 from out of county.
Right.
So that kind of seems like they're housing out of county juveniles.
Oh, they are. And,
Yeah.
And the argument here is that they're full, and
the wording was Rutherford County is not taking any
Right.
other kids. That's a direct quote.
That's what we just heard there.
We spoke to them, and unless there's something we've missed, I mean, from the meetings that we've seen, from their own website where they're advertising the fact, from the contracts they provide us with Wilson County, which they just signed one recently for $200 a night, where they house Wilson County kids, and from the phone conversation with Captain Caesar, they're taking out-of-county juveniles in Rutherford County.
Right. Now, what about this lawsuit?
Okay, so this is kind of a bigger, a little bit of a rabbit trail. We don't want to go down too deep. But there were serious issues in Rutherford County with juveniles. There were multiple class action lawsuits in 2016, one of which was close to the 14 million number he mentioned. It was actually 15 million. And those were all settled in 2021 for a maximum amount of $11 million. It actually ended up costing them 5 or 6.
But this was not because of the conditions inside the center. This was because of a judge.
This lawsuit, all these lawsuits, had nothing to do with treatment of out-of-county juveniles. It had nothing to do with treatment inside the facility of their own juveniles. This lawsuit specifically had to do with a bad judge, Judge Donna Scott Davenport, who retired 2 years ago, is no longer on the bench. And they had set up a system. What happened in Rutherford County, they overbuilt this 64-bed facility, as we saw from the numbers.
Right.
They're overbuilt for what they needed.
Right.
So she put some plans in place to fill it. Well, you don't make plans to fill your jail.
Right. Right.
They were putting kids in their facility that had charges that were, should have been a slap on the wrist and send a note home to a teacher, from your teacher kind of thing. and they were locking up kids. There were kids 8, 9, 10 years old
Right.
that they were locking up in their facility. If you go and Google this, there's an extensive ProPublica NPR article that actually features our Dr. Garrett,
Right.
that's now here, but at the time was
She
in
was
Rutherford
over there.
County.
Yeah.
And she's in the article, and not in a bad way, in a good way. She actually was, I believe, a principal or in the school system there,
Yeah.
and fought against some of what they were doing in locking up little kids for reasons that shouldn't have
Yeah.
happened.
That's just crazy.
Yeah,
But they're not dealing with a lawsuit now. That's been settled.
that was settled in 2021.
And it's
Now,
not the center. It was the judge.
the judge was the issue, not the juvenile center. That judge is no longer in place. They now have an oversight board that includes the county mayor. They meet once a month, and they are very intensive in these meetings at looking at every juvenile that's currently incarcerated. They check their charges and make sure there's nobody in there from their own system that's not on a serious charge
Right.
that should be there, so that they don't get back
Right.
into this.
So
lawsuit
this in no
situation.
way hinders us taking kids if we
Had
chose to do that.
nothing in the lawsuit involved out of county kids. Now I'm sure while the lawsuit was going on, if I was in outside county, I mean, I may
I would wait and see
I
what's
may have
going
waited and see what
Yeah,
was going
yeah.
on. But all of that's been settled. Now it looked like the final lawsuit that might still be open. I couldn't find a conclusion on it. Was the county actually sued their insurance company because the insurance company didn't want to pay out for
Right.
the settlement that they gave out. So there was a lawsuit against the insurer for like $5 or $6 million. But that again has nothing to do with out of county juveniles. So
Right. So that's we could do that. That's
Right.
That discussion needs to be taking place probably in the
Right.
process of deciding what we want to do.
right.
But when you don't have the facts and you hear other things that aren't true come out,
Right.
then you really, our commissioners, I mean, they hadn't dug into this,
No.
obviously, and maybe it's time they can look at this now.
Well, and that's why we did some digging, because again, I heard that quote on the radio and I was expecting to get answers, and what I got was information that wasn't really accurate from what I found.
Right. It's
So,
it's old news or
yeah.
twisted into
I mean,
justification.
he may just be misinformed. He
Right.
may not have done the research. I don't know. Or he may be going back to, he may have done his research 2 or 3 years ago when this was going on. But again,
It's changed now.
Things have
Right.
changed since then. The second part of that quote, which was the numbers are what the numbers are. And then we gave out numbers that are not in question.
You've
We-
got the numbers.
We have the same numbers that we've talked about for 2 weeks. He gave us a list of numbers of how many kids they're turning away from out of county.
Right.
So if we're in the juvenile detention business, then we care about those numbers. But if we're debating getting out of the business, the only numbers we care about are Bedford County juveniles.
What sounds like the real debate is whether or not we're in the incarceration business or if we're in the
Yeah.
taking care of our kids' business.
Right, or want to get out of it.
Right.
Now, there was a presentation given, I think, at the Chamber of Commerce this week, and if you go on the county Facebook, there's a quote from our mayor that says something to the effect of, "We're already in the juvenile business, so we're going to stay there because if we weren't in the business, maybe we might not." If you just go out there and Google, it's I'm gonna draw a blank on what the phrase is. It's I'm drawing a blank, but it's there's a fallacy that involves sunk cost fallacy.
Right,
Just Google
right.
that. It's a business term that we learned at Business 101. When you're considering a future, course of action, you don't go back and look at your sunk costs.
No.
I mean, just because you made a bad decision in the past,
You don't double down on it.
you don't double down on bad
But
decisions.
you know what?
Look to the
That's
future.
what businesses do.
Right. That's
But
what business
government,
does.
that's their game plan.
Government, well, and it's human nature. If you sunk a bunch of money into a truck, you want to keep putting money
Right.
into it because you're like, oh man, I've already got $15,000
Well, it's like
in the
you
truck.
just-
I'm going to put another
Yeah.
3,000 in repairs, even though it's not worth it.
And that's basically just you're in denial.
Right. Yeah. So don't make a decision based on sunk costs. Look to the future. Use real numbers, which is what we're trying to get to here, is the actual numbers, and don't be so tied up in
Right.
where you've been looking backwards. Look forward.
Exactly. We got to look forward.
Yeah,
That's
gotta
what
look
we're
forward. So, and then the last part of the quote there, which we'd already talked on earlier, was he said, if we don't have our own facility, we're sending our kids to Cookville or Shelby County.
Well, okay.
They said Memphis and Shelby County almost
That's 200 miles away. That's
There
200
is
miles.
zero
How many
chance that we're
kids
ever going to send our kids.
Have we
to
ever
Memphis.
sent a kid to Memphis?
I don't know the history on that, but I'm going to just
I'm
an
gonna
educated
say
guess that we probably have not ever sent juvenile to Memphis. But
I think we would stumble into a detention center between here and there, and we could take our kids to it.
for the money we're spending, we can put them up in a nice hotel for less than it take to
Exactly.
run to Memphis.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah, so that's kind of what we got on the juvenile detention center. Next up on their discussion was a public safety issue, which is a public safety training range, which is on this rundown of 5 items for $154,000. And we're big fans of public safety.
Yes.
I think, we probably don't spend enough money on public safety, but there are some specific issues with this item in that I've never seen it come to a committee. We've never seen it discussed in the commission until it showed up at finance a few weeks ago.
that's the first time anybody heard about this.
Yeah, or at least recently. There was some mention that maybe it had been put on the budget a couple times, although it wasn't in the budget packet I got for this year, but maybe a past budget.
Right.
But there's been no recent discussion about it for sure.
And again, this is tied to the Liberty School project
Right.
financing.
Right.
This is tied to that.
This is tied to that. So again, we had some more discussion, and let's roll that clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Not only to have our own range, but have it where we're at instead of having to drive across the county to get to it. And qualifying, it allows you to qualify not only in the daytime, but we can go at night. I'll be honest, these rifles that we use, police rifles that we use, and some of them are short barrel, are quite loud. I live even in Brookhaven, and it's no problem hearing them over there.
Okay.
And so, especially at night.
And this particular range that the city has doesn't have things like, and I know this is part of the design you all have, most of the places I've used have like baffles.
Yeah.
Baffles deaden the noise.
Right.
And they also help deflect bullets if they do get
Right.
out of shape. And I know that's one of the things you guys are looking at, and I know that this one's going to have some grass in it and stuff, so if there's accidental discharges, the other one has asphalt,
Yeah.
it's going to kind of ricochet. So there's just a whole lot of reasons.
There's
Yes.
so many,
So we understand it, and I think a lot of times folks, if they're not part of that profession, maybe don't. And that's what we're trying to educate folks to understand that.
Yeah, and the sheriff's team had been talking with the mayor's office way before now about the need for it, understanding, because this is not my primary focus or understanding, but they've made it clear that this is, designed from a security standpoint, a sound management standpoint,
Safety.
Capture the lead standpoint. My understanding is a lot, and even lighting is going to be able to be configured in a way there that gives you scenario opportunities that they don't necessarily get in other areas.
So again, David, we're not here to question public safety or public safety spending, but these are questions that should have been debated in the law enforcement committee, possibly in the property committee. There were things they talked about there, that this new range, which is going up where the current jail is at, will have night qualifying with loud rifles that you can hear from a far distance. So we're about to, that's industrial area, but there's still people that live there.
Yeah,
There's going
quite
to be
a
at
few,
least a few neighbors that maybe would have liked a heads up about this, and again, discussion in the proper committee
Right.
before this was brought up for a vote. The other thing that came out in that clip was it seemed like Commissioner Scott Johnson, who was doing the radio interview, and the mayor both had extensive information on the design of this new facility as far as baffles, grass, lighting. Where are those designs at? Have you seen those in a committee? Because I've not seen those in a
no.
committee. I asked a member of the law enforcement committee, have you seen anything? They said they've not seen anything. So do we have certain commissioners that get special information that doesn't go out to the rest of the county commission?
I think the answer is pretty clear.
It seemed
Obviously.
like it from that video that maybe we've got, I hesitate to call it, but maybe a good old boy network going where
What?
if you're, I know, maybe if you're in the right circle, you're getting information that the other county
How does the
commissioners aren't.
sunshine law work on that?
I don't know. I'm not a expert on the sunshine law. I know you can't actually have direct communication one-on-one between like the mayor and one commissioner at a time.
But you can't.
So, but again,
decisions aren't supposed to be made.
We've got 18 county commissioners. They should all be getting the same information to make the same educated decisions, and it shouldn't be crammed into an omnibus bill at the last second to be voted on.
Exactly.
You know, as if it's something. It sounded like, too, part of the interview, which I don't even think it was in that clip, that this had possibly come up in budgets in years past. So it doesn't seem like something urgent that we couldn't have run through the committee process.
Yeah, well, the committee, I'm sure, would be all over this and say, yes, let's do it.
Oh, I think the committee would approve it. And I think we would support this firing range. But again, the process is the question here, not the actual.
Right. And that's with all these projects.
Yeah, with all
the process. The process has just been, I don't even know what to call it at this point. It's
And that was part of what I was hoping that this panel of experts was going to cover, is the committee process and how this had all come to be. And I didn't hear a lot of answers to that. You know, I may have missed it. I may need to go back and listen again, but it didn't seem like that got covered.
I don't think it did.
I don't think it did either. The final item that they discussed, that's big enough that we're going to cover it, is the surplus facility for $600,000, which back in the fall, when they initially voted, the commission initially voted to move everything forward, do due diligence on.
Dig deeper, let's go.
Dig deeper. At that point, we didn't even know about some of these projects, but we did know there was a possible surplus facility coming down the line. We knew Liberty School was coming down the line. And we knew the juvenile center that they were going to, do due diligence on.
Right.
But at that point, they handed out this estimate from Mr. Sweeney of a surplus facility. This was in
September or July?
The email is dated July. It was actually voted on in September to do the final due diligence. Yeah. Commissioners were told the cost of this facility would be $287,000. If you decide to go with a pole barn, we could save another $10,000 to $20,000. So we'll say $267,000.
No, let me say that reference has been put out there. Barn. It's not a barn.
Yeah.
It's a building with wood poles versus metal poles. That's all it is.
It's not like
a barn.
It's not 4 poles in the roof. There's walls.
There's walls and there's a concrete floor. It's not dirt floor.
But we're about to play a clip and pole barn to be mentioned. But very specifically, this estimate says the way we have it cost out above is a 50-year structure. It included a whole list of items. One of them that we'll mention later on: 4 roll-up doors, 12 by 12. With garage door openers, so you could drive right through the facility, pull a truck in, unload, pull out. Just those doors for $40,000. But our total is $287,000.
Right.
So now we're about to vote on borrowing $600,000 to build this same building.
My question is, where's the rest of that money going?
Again, this piece of paper is the only thing that's been presented to the commission, at least the whole commission. Now, whether we have a certain circle of commissioners that have gotten additional information, we don't know. But the whole commission has gotten this $287,000.
This is the most troubling thing to me out of all of this.
Right.
Where's that gap from $287,000 to $600,000? Okay, you can build 2 buildings.
That's more than double.
Or you probably could build 3.
Yeah.
Honestly. Okay, so where's that money going? And then this floating number on the juvenile detention center, that's a big one for me. Those 2 things, but this one right here specifically, it's puzzling to me.
It is. Yeah.
You've got black and white, and now you've got something completely different, and nobody knows. It's just like
and there's no follow-up. We've not gotten any, and none of the commission's gotten any follow-up paperwork like, oh, hey, here's a new bid. We added square footage. We did this. We did that.
But they're going to have to vote on it Tuesday night.
But they're going to vote on it Tuesday
How does anybody vote yes for this?
If you support liberty and you don't want to be shown as voting against the school,
that's the thing. Vote yes. I'm being held hostage if I'm a commissioner at this point. I would like to hear. We've got 18 commissioners. I'd like to hear 18 comments on this whole package.
I'm hoping there's a lot of talking Tuesday night, but we're going to find out.
But we've got some more.
We got one more clip on this surplus. Let's hear what the experts
This is on the surplus building. This is a $600,000 building.
Yeah, let's hear what they had to say.
Not have any secure storage space if we needed to handle something or hold something. If somebody goes over to the old workhouse that's picking up a desk, they can pilfer through everything that's there. And again, I'm not saying anybody does anything wrong, but they're working in an office and like, hey, well, I could use that chair too. Well, now that gets gone. And again, nobody stole it, but we don't have the accountability records that make sure the checks and balances are done. So we already have some interest, outside interest, in potentially the old workhouse facility to be bought by the public. Now, the county commission decides that the property would have to be surplus. But if we were to sell it, then where are we going to put surplus next? And so it's evolved beyond. There was some early saying about a pole barn. I even said that if we had to, if y'all want to sell it, if nothing else, we could build a pole barn and put something in there. But if we're planning for it, we need a loading dock. We need to have some bay doors. We need an in and out process. We need to have some secure space for government use, period. And those things, that's what this facility would do. That's why the price is up some on it at the $600,000 estimate right there on it.
Okay, Josh, the price on it is up some.
Up some, yeah, from 287 to 600. So it's up some.
Up a little.
Yeah. First point off that video that I noticed. Actually, honestly, I did not notice this. Somebody actually sent this to me and said, "What are they talking about?" Direct quote from that video: "County has no secure storage space."
But where are we storing our stuff now?
Well, our stuff currently is housed in the workhouse, which prior to this had prisoners in it at some level.
Right.
I think that's what the
It was a
workhouse had.
secure location because there's a fence all the way around it, but it's
feels
not
like
secure.
Prisoners were secure while they were there, and now we've got old desks and chairs in there, but it's not safe enough for the old desks
Okay,
and chairs.
so do we have the doors open?
I'm not sure. It sounded like you could just walk in there and take a chair and a desk and walk out. So maybe the key's under the mat. I'm not sure. I've never actually walked up to the building. Maybe we should go check it out after the
Maybe
show.
I might get a desk.
There might
Are
be
they
some
giving
free
us
chairs.
one?
I don't know.
Okay.
So it seems like maybe there's some processes that could be improved over at the workhouse building. But I find it hard to believe that the building is not secure. But
Okay.
again, it had prisoners at some point. So
Yeah, it's
feels-
mind-boggling.
feels fairly secure. So, but the bigger issue still is the dollar amount.
Right.
$600,000. He talked about bay doors, loading facility, loading docks. The $287,000 quote had 4 bay doors, 12 by 12 with door openers that
Okay.
you could drive a truck through. So that seems fairly easy to load and unload. So I'm not sure what.
Now, for people that don't know, this is the old RC plant where
Right.
the RC bottling company was that they used, and they had bays. And that's the reason the doors are like they are.
Yeah.
But my thought on this is, has anybody had this building appraised to see what it's worth?
Right.
Because it's talk about selling it. Market value on this, I've talked to some people that say it could be anywhere from $600,000 to maybe $850,000 of market value on this piece of property. And yes, that would pay for the $600,000, but the $600,000 is like,
Well, that's the question. Yeah, I mean, this building that we're in, as we've said, is probably bigger than we need, the current workhouse. So if we're downsizing and building,
well,
you
we
would think
are.
we should be able to
You're looking at
actually make some money out of this.
I don't know,
deal.
15,000 square foot down to 3,200 square foot.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 3,200 square foot, $600,000 building. I'm not sure even how you get there with that.
Well, the only thing I can think is that the square footage has gone up since this paperwork that we were provided in the fall. But again, we've not seen a second estimate that gets us to this $600,000 number, nor as far as any commissioner I've talked to, have they seen one.
Okay, so that's the point.
Yeah,
That's the
point.
concern
That's the
with
concern.
all of this.
Yeah, is process, are we putting the cart before the horse? He talked about we can't sell the building until we have a new surplus facility. They've discussed at least 6 to 9 months worth of property commission meetings. Do we want to surplus and sell that building? The committee has been firm that they do not want to surplus that building at this time. So there's no rush to build a new facility to surplus it because they've not shown any interest in surplusing it.
Yeah.
Now, by building the new building, they're almost forced into surplus in the old building because at that point, then they've got an empty building, and then
Right.
why are we even hanging on?
Well,
to
we're going to have some empty buildings, it sounds like.
it sounds like it. So yeah. So that was the surplus, and those were your experts. And honestly, not to recommend another show, but I'd say go on WLIJ and watch the video yourself. If you don't believe what we have to say here, listen to the experts, get their side of it. We've presented our side of it.
Yeah. Well,
And Tuesday night, hopefully a lot of commissioners are going to speak up and we're going to hear their side.
if I'm there, I want to hear from all 18. I want to hear what they know,
Right.
because obviously there's some that know a whole lot more than others, because some are just sitting around, what is this about?
Right.
I mean, it's puzzling.
Yeah.
So I would contact my commissioner, and I know I will, but it's not going to do any good because they never respond.
Yeah. Like I said, we sent our video to all 18 commissioners and the county mayor, the first video that we did. I heard by email from 2 commissioners, responded by email, and another 4 responded personally because I have more contact with them either through Facebook or through a phone call or something. So not quite half, and the rest I heard nothing from.
Yeah.
But Tuesday I'm hoping to hear from most, if not all of them.
Right.
So because this is $10.4 million of taxpayer money.
Right.
This is not the county's money. This is not the administration's money.
Yeah.
This is not money that fell down out of the sky.
No. Well,
this is taxpayer money.
Let me throw this out here.
Yeah.
This is taxpayer money, but it's not going to increase our property taxes per se because of this. But down the road, it could possibly affect our taxes because of the way we're spending our money today will affect our future financial situations.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So,
$10 million you spend today is $10 million you don't have when you need to build the next
and I know
the next facility.
Now this is for debt repayment, and I don't know about capital expenditures and so forth. And I don't know how a road fits into that category. That's something for somebody else to answer. But I'm quite sure this money that we're possibly spending here could help pave some roads somewhere else. Even though you can't take it from there, it still keeps money free somewhere.
Right.
Okay. That could be used for roads. And I know everybody's concerned about roads in schools.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nobody likes potholes.
No.
Everybody wants your kids to be taken care of.
Right.
So.
And that's 2 of our basic infrastructures, our schools and our roads.
Yeah.
School is an infrastructure because we have to educate our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at the clock, and we've gone long as usual. So maybe we should hear from our sponsor and then look at what we have coming up in the upcoming week.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
With the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
All righty, welcome back in here, and we again thank Dennis Young Insurance for being our sponsor of the weekend wrap up. Josh, what we got coming up this coming week?
In the upcoming week, Monday evening at 6:30 p.m., the Bedford County Republican Party at 1302 North Main Street on the 2nd floor is having their monthly meeting, and our city mayor, Randy Carroll, will be giving a presentation, just kind of the state of what's going on in the city and whatnot. So those are open to the public. If you're curious what's going on with city government, if you've never met the mayor, if you want to just meet him, if you just want to hear what's going on, wide open public meeting, 6:30 Monday night, 1302 North Main Street. Show up for that. And then the big one, county commission meeting, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Our county commission will be voting whether or not to borrow $10.4 million for a capital outlay note to pay for the 5 projects that we have discussed ad nauseum for 3 weeks straight. So by next Saturday, we'll know which way they voted, which side they were on, and we'll call them out by name if we have to, like we do every week.
It's going to be a yes or a no vote. So
right.
It's pretty obvious.
It's going to be on the record. So, and again, as I led with early on, we're not here to beat up on any of them, but we're here to bring light and information to everybody so they know exactly what's going on, how their commissioner voted, what was said on the floor, that type of thing.
Right.
So
if you're concerned, contact your commissioner.
Yeah, absolutely. And show up Tuesday night. Again, public comment. You get 3 minutes. There's a list. You can sign up and, get in a line and talk for 3 minutes. Anything you want. That's on the agenda, which would probably be the side of
this
it.
What you want to talk
about. This is the big one. But if there's anything else on the agenda you want to talk about as well, you could. You can't just come with a general concern about your neighborhood. You can't come in and say, my traffic's bad. Or they don't allow that. But if it's on the agenda,
it could be, but not at this.
Not at this meeting. For this meeting, it's got to be on the agenda. So 3 minutes, though, you're allowed to talk for your 3 minutes. And, yeah, let them know how you feel about it.
I think we'll hear some from a few people.
I hope so. I hope we do actually have some people show up for this one.
Well, Josh, thanks for all your hard work on digging all these numbers up and getting facts for us.
Well, thank
facts
you.
are important. That's what we have to discuss, are facts, not the fallacies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And we do have a lot of numbers that we've crunched, and it's all because Josh his bird dog self got in there and dug it out.
Well, and I will one more quick disclaimer. We're here live on the air. We say a lot of things. We're not perfect. We might have said something that was inaccurate today. If we did and it bothers you, let us know.
Right.
We're not above putting a correction on
Right.
next week. So
Absolutely not.
I talked to a couple people at the city this week. They said they're watching the show. I said, if you hear us say anything that's not accurate, again, we're live. We're, flying by the seat of our pants.
Right,
And we may
right.
let something slip that's not a good number. We may misread something. Just,
Yeah.
we're reachable on Facebook. Just send us a message.
Right.
And we'll get it corrected for sure.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back again next week to cover this upcoming week's news and let you know what's important, the news that matters.
Yeah.
Here on Shelbyville Now, Weekend Wrap Up. Have a good weekend.